All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a philosophy that is brilliant, it's challenging, and maybe most surprisingly, it's one of the most powerful ways to find real joy in a world that often feels pretty chaotic. We're talking about Albert Camus. You know that feeling, right? That sense that your life is kind of running on a loop. This comfortable, but I don't know, somehow hollow routine. You wake up, you commute, you work, you eat, you sleep. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know the drill. And for the most part, we just go along with it. It's easy enough. Our assumptions about life just kind of work. But then it happens. Out of nowhere, the whole thing can suddenly feel strange, arbitrary even. And that one little question pops into your head. Why? For Albert Camus, this is where everything begins. That moment of weariness, that's the dawn of what he called absurd awareness. And the man who spent his life exploring this feeling wasn't some stuffy academic sitting in an office. His philosophy was forged in the fire of a really difficult and intensely lived life. I mean, just look at this. He was born into poverty in Algeria, lost his dad in World War I, and then his dreams of being a professional soccer goalie were totally crushed by tuberculosis when he was just 17. He knew struggle. He stared death in the face. He fought the Nazis as part of the French resistance. And yeah, he went on to win a Nobel Prize. His ideas didn't come from a textbook. They were born in the real world. See, he wasn't a philosopher of the ivory tower. He was a philosopher of the sun and the sea. His ideas came from real, lived experience, from this fierce love for being alive, and from asking the absolute hardest questions about what it means to be human in a world that can feel pretty inhuman. And that brings us to his core idea, the absurd. Now, this doesn't mean life is silly or makes no sense. For Camus, the absurd is something very specific. It's the collision. It's this head-on confrontation between our deep human need for answers, for meaning, and a universe that just gives us nothing. Okay, let's really break this down. On one side, you've got us, humanity. We're crying out with these huge questions. Why are we here? What's the point of all this? Is there any kind of cosmic justice? And on the other side, the universe just responds with complete and total silence. The absurd is born right there, in that gap between our questions and the lack of answers. Camus just nailed this feeling, this deep ache inside all of us. We long for a world that makes sense, logically and morally, even when we're staring a world right in the face that, well, clearly doesn't. So, what's the move? What do? If you can't find the meaning you're so desperately looking for, how are you even supposed to live? This is the huge question the absurd forces us to deal with. And Camus frames the problem with this incredibly stark, almost shocking clarity. But listen, for him, the immediate danger isn't necessarily physical suicide. He's way more interested in another kind of escape, one that's a lot more common. He called it philosophical suicide. And what is that? It's the act of just shutting down. It's when we kill off that honest, curious part of our mind because it's easier. It's a leap away from an uncomfortable truth and into a comforting belief just to avoid the anxiety of not knowing. And we see this everywhere, right? It could be a leap of faith into a religion or a political ideology that promises to have all the answers. It could be this blind hope that science or technology will eventually solve all our human problems. Or, and let's be real, maybe the most common one today, we just distract ourselves to death with endless entertainment and shopping. They're all just different ways of avoiding that face-to-face meeting with the absurd. But Camus says, no, there's a third option, a more courageous one. Instead of running away from the absurd, you turn around and you face it. You look it right in the eyes. You acknowledge it, and you choose to live anyway, without begging some higher power for help or hoping for a reward in the future. And this path is built on three really powerful ideas. First, you've got revolt. This is you constantly saying no to this meaningless condition. It's living in active defiance. Second, we find freedom. The moment we accept there's no pre-written script for our lives, we become radically free to create our own meaning. And finally, passion. This is the drive to live as much and as intensely as you possibly can, to value every experience. Because this is it. This is the only life you've got. And Camus found the perfect metaphor, the perfect symbol for this heroic, defiant life in a tragic figure from Greek mythology. Think about Sisyphus for a second. The gods cursed him to push a giant boulder up a hill for all of eternity, only to watch it roll back down every single time he nears the top. It is the very definition of a futile, pointless task. And yet, this is where Camus makes this incredible claim. He says we have to imagine Sisyphus is happy. Why? Because his victory isn't about getting the rock to stay at the top. His victory is knowing his fate is absurd and refusing to give in to despair anyway.
And that is the brilliant final twist. Sisyphus's happiness isn't some reward he gets at the end. His happiness is his rebellion. He creates his own meaning, not by escaping his fate, but by embracing it with scorn and with joy. You see, for Camus, realizing life is absurd isn't a death sentence. It's the very thing that sets you free to live a passionate, rebellious, and fully human life.
And that brings the whole question right back to us, to you. We all have our boulders, right? The daily grind, the struggles, the repetitive tasks. The question Camus leaves us with isn't how we can get rid of the boulder, it's how can we find our own freedom, our own passion, and our own defiant happiness in the simple, absurd act of pushing it.